why do women have periods? It's because they are getting ready to get pregnant. That's basically all the cycle is about. And so if that cycle is painful in any way or irregular...
Awe Genge, this is Mental Matters, hosted by Isabella Thor.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mental Matters. I'm your host, Isabella Thor, and before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
And again, thank you so much for I would say, for being here and being able to talk about this conversation. It's a conversation that I keep on saying this. It's a conversation that I want to learn more about, and in a way of trying to shift the narrative in terms of getting out the information about, in terms of the conversation that I want to talk about is functional nutrition, hormonal cycle, dysfunction, mental health, and infertility. I feel like it's as much as there's information out there, but at the same time, I have this feeling that I would say that it's scarce, and as much as there is the information, but at the same time, there's this thing called misinformation. People say things that they might not be true, and some people might take them as true. So through our conversation, hopefully this conversation will be very helpful for the audience and also me in terms of someone that is in the industry, in terms of the middle, when it comes to information, in terms of podcasting and having that genuine conversation around mental health as a whole. So we don't lose all that. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. And it's so, I can just tell from your face and your energy that you really mean what you say. You know, you care about the narrative. You care about knowing what is true and what's not true. And yeah, I really appreciate that. And it's lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for those words. And also, I did a little bit of research in terms of the conversation, as much as I did it, but at the same time, there are things that I didn't know. So,
sure.
First question towards you is, what led you to specialize in functional nutrition for hormonal cycle dysfunctions, especially in context of mental health?
Yes, now that's a big question. I'll give you the short story. I will see if you like it. Maybe we'll go farther into it. But so the brief thing is, so hormonal cycle dysfunction is where I started out in my practice. So I run a private practice in Canada, and I help a lot of conditions today. But so everything today, from reversing arthritis in people to reversing infertility to helping people lose weight. But when I really started out, like day one, what I really helped a lot with, like 100%, was women who had hormonal cycle dysfunction, because that's how I entered functional nutritional therapy. And today, you know, they might make up 30 or 40% of my practice, but I realized last year when I was just looking at, you know, the impact of my practice. It's a small little practice in Canada, and I see people all over the world remotely. But what I realized is that one of the most important topics that I help people with in my practice is to teach women and men that periods for women aren't actually supposed to be painful. So the period, or the menstrual cycle, for a woman is something she has since she's about a teenager to, 40s, 50s. And so that's about 30, 35 or more years of her life. And there's a big misconception that a part of that every single month is supposed to be very painful. Unless you're pregnant or on hormonal birth control and that sort of thing. So the thing is, that's not true. And so for the past few years, I've been doing my best to go and talk to people curious like you and radio hosts and magazines to tell people what is normal and what is not. So let's start at the beginning. So I realized I stumbled across the fact that period pain is not normal by learning how to resolve my own depression. So I was deeply depressed right around university time. And between my bachelor's and master's degree, it became so bad that I had to drop out. And I made a pact with myself. It was quite a serious. So there are degrees of suicide, as you probably know. And some of the more serious parts of when you're very seriously suicidal, when number one, you actually start to plan out what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and that sort of thing. And another one is and a slightly less severe form of that is when you make a pact with yourself. So that is something that I did, and that looks like, in this time frame, if things don't get better, okay, fine. Like I can just check out, and I did my best, and nothing means anything anyway, so might as well just end. And that's what I did. And I said, 5 years, if I can't figure it out, fine. And that's good enough for me. And I tell you guys this, by the way, being from a community and family that was super supportive. I had the best family, best friends, and partner. Everybody was very supportive. But it had nothing to do with the community I was around, or let's say resources. I had all my basic needs met and everything like that. And I was in a great location in terms of like learning and being stimulated in terms of mentally that way. But what was missing, which of course comes back to functional nutrition, was nourishment. I was becoming more and more malnourished as soon as I started entering university. And that is a very common thing among young people. And it's one of the reasons a lot of us become seriously depressed once we exit high school and go out sort of away from our parents a little bit or our family groups, and we have to look after our own food, feed ourselves. And you know what it's like. We're not very good at that. We're just like little kids, and we don't take care of ourselves very well. And I had a little bit of background and knew a little bit about how to feed myself, but not very good. And so long story short, I took that suicide pact. I dropped out of my master's degree, and I started a completely different research path. And it was all down functional nutrition and a bigger field in medicine today that is totally the future of medicine. And it's called functional medicine. And that is when we look at the body as a whole and not as separate systems. So, for example, you would come to a functional practitioner for mental problems as well as physical problems. So if you sleep bad, if you have bad stomach ache, and you have some sort of mental disorder of some kind or another that has a fancy name somewhere, you could come to someone a functional practitioner, and they could look at your whole body and say, maybe it's actually a combination of nutritional deficiencies, maybe some overgrowth of bacteria, and all these things that are very, basically very ignored if you go into a hospital today. I love Western medicine. I think it's great if you get into a car accident, but most of your life isn't one big emergency. And so for the rest of the chronic conditions we have around us, we need a holistic approach that meets the basic body needs and foundations. And so I know I already said long story short, but I promise it's almost there. So what happened is that I discovered a few little things in terms of basic nourishment that completely turned off my depression. It was insane how clear it was. It was like a switch, like a light switch. If I had enough vitamin D and protein, it's like the switch was off, and I could see the world the way I used to as a younger child, like very optimistic, very, full of, I could see the potential in the world and, want to work towards something and make something of myself and could participate in this beautiful world, even though we might logically know that it's all going to fall apart anyway. But it doesn't matter because you have that will to live again. And one of the most important things I realized when I became certified as a practitioner in this later was that all your feel-good hormones, including those hormones and neurotransmitters that give you that zest for life, the mojo, the will to live when you want to jump out of bed in the morning, like all of that, even if stuff is hard, all of that is created by nutrients. So if you don't have enough nutrients in your body to create the hormones and the neurotransmitters, your body is super smart and it will just create less of them, and it will prioritize the very basics, like keep your brain running, keep your lungs breathing, and make sure you can walk around a little bit so you can find food. But like everything else, really just, you don't have to feel good. Your body does not think that's a priority to waste resources doing. You don't get to sleep good, because why sleep if you're starving? Like malnourishedly starving, right? You can have plenty of calories, but very poorly nutritionally in terms of the calorie content. So calories are not nutrients, which is a big, interesting thing that we get wrong a lot. Just because it has a lot of calories in it does not mean it has a lot of nutrients in it. So yeah, that's one of the most important things I realized. And that's really what brought me here. And I promise this is maybe not the short story, but yeah, but that's okay. This is how it's all related, It's beautiful. And one thing I'd like to say, maybe before I love your thoughts on this, is that if anybody's listening now and feels depressed, whether it's constant or periodic stress, which is more common for like hormonal cycle dysfunctions for women, for example, either category, if that's true for you, I just want you to know, please know that what you're feeling right now and what you're seeing is not the fire of life. What you're seeing is just the smoke, and that's it. And so don't worry about yourself in terms of, don't worry about thinking if there's something wrong with you. There's probably nothing wrong with you. Most likely you're perfectly built, except you just don't have enough resources to use that perfectly built structure. I know we're not cars, but if you are a luxury car and we don't put any petroleum in you, could we drive that beautiful car? No. And that's just how simple it is really in our bodies. So if you're listening, don't worry about it. It really can be transformational just to make sure you have basic nutrition.
I just want to touch on conversation around nutrition and being invested in terms of not moving, but in terms of nutrition. In all honesty, it's something that I've been struggling with when it comes to nutrition. But actually, I've been blessed enough to have this podcast, being able to interview people in terms of, in a way,
right.
Speaking about nutrition, speaking about nutrition-based science, speaking about gut health. And at some point, I think it was last week when I had a guest and we started speaking about gut health, and I realized that in a way I was lactose towards milk, and it didn't fit well with my stomach. And at first I didn't realize that was the case. It's something that I thought just a normal thing, and it's right. That who are not knowing what actually you need to eat, but you should take care of your gut. If you take care of your gut, you live I would say similar life, a life of health. That healthy life, I've always seen it on TV and never with it. So after I decided to buy some milk that was gluten free, and in terms of my I would say, how can I put it, in a way of my view towards milk was very different. Right. I didn't go to the toilet a lot. I didn't go a lot. Or firstly, I used to go every time. When I I have my porridge with milk protein
Right.
every single time. After I bought the extra protein free, and it actually changed my perspective. And I realized that it's important to take care of our heart health. It's something that
Yeah.
I believe that it's important. It's something that I am pushing towards it. And also, I feel like, as I mentioned, that the information needs to be there in terms of people. Because one thing that I can very, actually also I'm